You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
4:42 on this Friday. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Eagles make a big trade, and Ezekiel Elliott of the Dallas Cowboys has been suspended 6 games by the National Football League. We just read you the statement a few moments ago from the Ezekiel Elliott camp. They are clearly not happy with the findings of the league today, and they say there's a lot of factual inaccuracies and erroneous conclusions in this report, and they ignore some other critical evidence. So the NFL says they have important evidence, and then Ezekiel Elliott's camp says, hey, that evidence is not 110% factually accurate. Let's get some clarity on this situation. RJ Choppy does a tremendous job. Morning Drive on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, and he's kind enough to hop on board with us right now. RJ, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
I'm doing well. I always have a few minutes for my hometown, man.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. So let's go to the scene of the crime. Ezekiel Elliott gets 6 games today. When you first heard the news, what was your first reaction?
You know, I'd always thought it would be 1 or 2 games. This morning, it kind of leaked to us real early by 5 a.m. that it was going to be more. It was going to be in the 4 to 6 range. I was stunned. You know, I guess it's the same route just because the lack of a conviction or a trial in Columbus really kind of surprised me. And I didn't think it was a possibility that the NFL had jurisdiction over something that happened to you while you were in college, that the NFL has the accessibility to information that the police department didn't have. And then the fact that they go and they take a guy who was found guilty of nothing in the courts and say, well, you're guilty of something in our eyes. It doesn't strike me as that's a dangerous road for the league to go down. You know, Josh Brown gets 1 game, and Zeke Elliott gets 6, and Ray Rice gets 2, or I guess you got a lifetime if you want to call it that. Greg Hardy got like 25. They're all over the map, and that's the problem. There's no consistency of what the league's doing.
And the thing here, when you look at it, and I was a little bit surprised. I was in the same boat as you. I thought because of the way that they handled these situations in the past, and they did a terrible job with Josh Brown, they would get 1 or 2. But how much do you think the situation on the roof and also the alleged situation at the bar also played into factor with this, with a little bit of a pattern here in this situation?
I heard that the incident at the bar a couple of weeks ago didn't play a role at all. That the St. Patrick's Day thing did. And that's fine. I mean that was disgusting. I mean you can't do stuff like that. Even though he had a relationship with her and maybe that was something that they would do in their own time, you're still in public, and that's just not a very good look for the league, for the Cowboys, for Zeke himself. Zeke's not a bad guy. He's his own worst enemy. He gets in trouble. He's out too much. He's basically on the town 3-4 nights a week. Now, he's not doing anything wrong. I mean, he's doing anything else that a 22-year-old's doing. But, you know, he is the running back of the Cowboys, and he is a high-profile figure. But those 2 incidents, at least the St. Patrick's Day incident did play a role.
So do you not find this girl with this main cause here not very credible is what I'm kind of getting at if you say he's not a bad guy?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, everything that I heard from, you know, Columbus and those reports is that, you know, he didn't, you know, he wasn't convicted of anything. And there's been stories about whether or not we've heard reports that she had said those things and then retracted them. Maybe you had taken them too far. You know, I mean, you could. There are people who do things wrong that are not bad guys that make bad decisions. I would say Zeke is a bad decision maker, and he's especially a bad decision maker in a social situation. You know, I've spent time with the guy. He's just a quiet guy. He's not. You know, he's a bimbo. I think that's the best way to put it. He's kind of got that bimbo side to him. Very naive. His biggest problem is he's got that fear of missing out. He's got FOMO. And if they're out, if people are out, he's got to be there too. That night that happened at that bar a couple of weeks ago, that was the 3rd time he went in there. He had left 2 times before, and you know he couldn't get enough. He had to go back, and it's like, what are you going back for? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. What are you leaving? If you're going to leave, leave. If you're going to come back, if you're going to stay, stay. But you know, he keeps coming back because he hears somebody else popped up, and it's just that fear of missing out that. He's got to get over that because him and Dak Prescott are very close. The last thing you want is for Dak to be put in a situation that he's compromised in. You know, that's good for nobody.
As we're talking to RJ Choppy right now, 105.3 The Fan, with these three allegations, and it is important to point out that he hasn't been convicted of anything, it seems like you're not that concerned. I'm a little bit surprised by that, RJ.
Well, I'm not concerned that he's going to do this again because I don't think that there's no control that you have over that. I mean, he's going to do what he's going to do. They're going to suspend him. I don't think that's going to play a role in it at all. I think if you make bad decisions, you're going to make bad decisions, and I don't think Zeke thinks for a second going into some situation that he's going to make a bad decision. I think he just does, and that's what I've always. I wrestle with my co-host a lot about sending a message to the team, and I'm like, these guys don't care. These guys don't care about messages. I mean, they're getting their money. They're going to play. They know they're going to play. They don't care about messages. If they cared about it, they wouldn't have done the act in the first place. So I don't know that I can sit here and have a lot of concern just because it's so far out of my control, out of everyone's control, what Zeke's going to wind up doing. I just don't think he's going to go out there and commit major crimes. I mean, I think he's going to get in trouble. I think he's going to do dumb things socially. I don't think deep down that he's going to go out there and do this again.
Talking to RJ Choppy, the Cowboys' reaction, we see the reports that Jerry Jones is furious. He thought there was not going to be a suspension. What are you hearing from the Cowboys' perspective?
Well, they're angry. Jerry Jones is as big of a supporter as Roger Goodell as it gets, and they are not happy right now with what's going on. I mean, think about it. It took a long time. It took over a year to do this. It took over a year with Tom Brady. It doesn't sit right with Jerry. And I think Jerry's problem is that he's like, well, Roger, I support Roger. I've always supported Roger, and he comes and he does this, and that's not really fair. I mean, Roger's got to administer discipline the way he sees fit. But the Cowboys were kind of surprised by this. They had said, at least publicly, they had said all along, there's no evidence. They expected absolutely nothing, any kind of discipline, which we all thought was crazy because the NFL wasn't going to do a 12 to 18-month investigation for nothing. They were going to go out there. They were going to investigate for 12 months. They were going to punish him somehow.
Hold on, real quickly. Just look at the Tom Brady situation that Jerry Jones had no problem with. They had more probable than not, and still tried to suspend him. They gave him the 4 games, and he sat it. So Jerry Jones didn't care then.
Right. No. And it's owners will care when it comes on their doorstep.
When it affects them.
What's that?
When it affects them. So it's a little hypothetical of Jerry Jones.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think most people are like that. Well, some people are like that in a lot of regards. I mean, they don't think something is a big deal until it crawls up their doorstep, and I think that's a problem in society anyway. And Jerry's a victim of that too. And it didn't affect him under Greg Hardy necessarily. It didn't affect him. I guess it does affect him when he has all the suspensions for drug busts. But there is certainly a level of now there's frustration. There wasn't frustration when it was Brady, but now there's frustration, and it crawled on his doorstep. And now the thing that Goodell's got to worry about is the two most powerful owners are Kraft and Jerry, and now they're probably neither one of them really likes him very much right now.
All right, looking at this, and who knows how long this thing is going to go for. It's going to be a litigious situation. Who knows if Zeke ever serves the suspension this year. We saw the Brady thing take forever to finally get a final stamp on it where Brady just moved on from it. Though, with that being said, let's say if he does miss the first 6 games, how many games do you expect the Cowboys to win this year?
Well, I do think he'll miss at least 5. I don't think they're going to sit there. The NFL did a 12 to 18-month investigation. They were very thorough. I don't know that the NFL themselves is going to limit this. The only way he plays in those games is if he does a lawsuit kind of like Brady does, and they kind of push everything back, which is possible. If he does miss, I think anything more than 3 wins is really going to be stretching it. I think they're going to lose to the Giants. They're going to lose to Green Bay. The Denver game becomes a swing game. That's week 2. They'll beat the Rams. They'll beat the 49ers. They got a decent chance of beating Arizona. But the Denver game is the swing game. They could beat Denver on the road week 2, and Denver can't score. Denver has they have no ability to score, even though the Cowboys' defense isn't very good. They got no offense. They have no quarterback. If the Cowboys beat Denver, then they have an outside, and I mean outside by 10% chance of getting a 4-2. But other than that, I mean, this is a 3-3 team after 6 games, probably at best. It's probably a 2-4 team because I think they can beat San Fran. They can beat the Rams. It's still a good offense, still a good offensive line. They got great receivers. I'm a big Dak Prescott fan. The offensive line's terrific. It's just what can you get out of your running game? What can you get out of Darren McFadden? Even though he had a decent 2015 season, he was non-factor last year. So, I mean, 3-3, 2-4, that's probably your best bet.
When you look at the criticism of Dak Prescott, which I think is very much unfair, I think he's a good quarterback in this league and proved it last year, but people will point out the play of Ezekiel Elliott. People will point out that offensive line. Is Dak good enough to get them to that record that you're talking about with that swing game with the Broncos? What do you expect out of Dak in the absence of Zeke?
Well, he's going to have to throw the ball more, and he's going to have to step up. And they're going to have to open the offense, too. That's the one thing they didn't do last year at times is that they kind of babied him. They have to let him run the offense. He ran a very similar system in Mississippi State. Scott Linehan, the offensive coordinator here, his offense, or kind of the disciplines of his offense, was used by Dan Mullen at Mississippi State. So he's been running this offense for a while. He's been running this scheme for a while. So it's not something that is out of his comfort zone. He's got the ability. He's not the greatest pocket passer. If you let him try to do what he did last year, which is be a good third down runner if he has to, sometimes these design plays, be more of a Russell Wilson type and try to be a Tom Brady type or Cam Newton. Just play the game that he's able to play. They've got the receivers to do it. They got a short game. They got a long passing game. They got some shifty little guys who are under 6 feet tall that are really good route runners, can get open, and good hands. They've got guys that can do that. And then the offensive line's not as good as last year. You know, they lost Doug Free. They moved some parts around. They only had about 60% of their offensive line intact from last year. So it's not as good, and especially not going to be as good early.
I'll end you on this because I'm sure it's getting a lot of play in Dallas today with the whole Ezekiel Elliott situation. You mentioned some of the previous cases like a Josh Brown, which the league just had an incompetent role in giving out the right penalty. I guess the precedent now, and I know that they have it in their personal conduct policy, is that if you're involved in any domestic abuse situation and there's 1 or 2 instances of any evidence that the player's going to get 6 games, is that a fair way to interpret it after today?
Yeah, I think it is. I also think the fair way to interpret is that, they did say, Adam Schefter said that, under the personal conduct policy, even accusations can lead to a suspension.
Yep.
And that's where, I look, if they suspend him because he committed domestic violence, kick him out of the league. I don't care. Throw him out. If you suspend somebody for being accused of something, I think you get into a dangerous situation. And I don't, that's, to me, that's not very American, is just to do that to somebody just for being accused. A lot of people get accused of things that, wrongfully accused. I mean, it happens all the time. And I'm not saying that's what happened here. I don't know what happened here. I just know the court said that we don't have enough to go on. The dangerous side of this is the accusation wording that Schefter used. The precedent is, look, and it should be the precedent. If you do something like this, you should get 6 games. All right, that you should get your 6 games. You should get more, if you ask me. But there better be some more concrete evidence, because I think this is the league looks a little bit dictatorship-like right now, and I don't know that's the best thing.
But the league has to feel confident by their statement today, I'd have to imagine. I wonder if we ever find out what that evidence is.
I hope we do. I would love to know, because that would shut a lot of people up. It would shut people up in DFW. It would shut me up at times. I would love to see it. I think the problem is that you're going to see it if Zeke and the Cowboys decide to sue, and then everything comes out. And at that point, let's say Zeke really did do something, then everything comes out. Not just with this case, with everything else. They build the case. They build a credibility case. A habitual type case, and then it gets to the point is like, there's some secrets that get out that you just don't want to get out.
I'll end you on this, just getting back to why you're not that concerned about Ezekiel Elliott. Just with this pattern, isn't this a major issue? Like, I look at this like a major issue, and that's why if I was a Cowboys fan, which I'm not, I would just be concerned about him when the star of your franchise is getting put in all these situations. It just seems like it keeps on surrounding him.
Well, I'm concerned about this. I'm concerned that he's not aware that 2 a.m. is a bad time of morning. That's my concern. I don't think deep down that Zeke is going to go out and get into fights left and right. But I do think that Zeke has a problem with being somewhere that other people are not being somewhere that other people are having fun at. And when he's sitting at home and everyone else is texting him, "Hey man, I'm doing this. Hey man, I'm doing that," he's got to go, and he's got to be there. And that's Zeke's biggest problem. You don't get in trouble necessarily at bars if you don't go to bars. But he's always there. He's there, quite often. He's there no more than a normal 22-year-old is, but a normal 22-year-old doesn't have the responsibility of being the running back of the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Giants or the Cleveland Browns. I mean, you've got responsibilities there. I'm not concerned that Zeke is a criminal. I don't believe he's a criminal. I think he makes bad decisions that put him in positions that he shouldn't be in. And I hope – I'm looking at it from Dez Bryant's perspective. Dez got in a lot of trouble early on. Dez been pretty quiet lately. Dez has had a far worse upbringing. Dez had the worst upbringing I've ever seen. And Zeke's got a decent he's got a decent backstory in terms of a family that can help support him and a support system. And Dez didn't have that. Dez grew out of it, and Dez is fine. He's not perfect, but he's in a much better place than Zeke is right now.
Will they go the babysitter route with Ezekiel Elliott? Didn't they do that with Dez Bryant? If memory serves me right.
Yeah, they kind of did do that with Dez. I expect them to do that with Zeke. It could very well be Dak Prescott as the babysitter. Dak and Zeke are joined at the hip. It could be him. But, yeah, I expect them to go with the babysitter route.
RJ, appreciate it. Thanks so much. Enjoy your weekend.
Anytime, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. RJ Choppy, Morning Drive on 105.3 The Fan. Yeah, my big problem with that, and once again, I can't say without a doubt that Ezekiel Elliott is guilty here. I can't. He's never been convicted of anything. But even with the situations that we have presented, with just these allegations of domestic abuse, it's not just one incident. Then you also have another incident where he's accused of breaking a man's nose in a fight. Then you have the video of him pulling down a girl's top on a roof. That, to me, it's not just one situation. Those three things alone give me a big-time cause of concern for Ezekiel Elliott. And I'm concerned. And I can't say he's a good guy. I can't say he's a bad guy. I've never met him. But when you constantly be put in these situations, and, hey, I'm 23 years old. I get it. I don't have the power, the fame, the clout of one Ezekiel Elliott, but I go out to plenty of bars. And when I go out to bars, I don't get the next day a domestic abuse allegation. You don't see me breaking someone's nose. So that's not a good enough excuse that, this guy just has to be there. He has FOMO and all that stuff. Go to the bar and don't be a jerk. But this situation right now is a he said, she said, which Jerry Jones said it wasn't. Jerry Jones also said he wasn't going to get suspended. So I can't believe how naive Jerry Jones was on this, because I thought at the bare minimum he was going to get 1 to 2 games, and they gave him 6. And that goes with the personal conduct policy. Here's the thing with the NFL. The NFL has got burned on these things before. So now they have to be extra careful with these situations. Because publicly, the NFL has been a nightmare in these matters. They need to be right. That's the number one thing. Because if this is a case where the girl made it up and she's just going after Ezekiel Elliott, then I will be 110% with Zeke. But I want to see that evidence on what the NFL has and what they claim to have. Because they believe it's damaging enough to give a 6-game suspension. That's what they have. And remember, the NFL knew of the Pro Bowl incident with Josh Brown's wife and only gave him 1 game. So the NFL has tried to hide things from you in the past. Now, because they realize we can find out everything and it will eventually come to the scene. They needed to take a stronger approach, and that's terrible to even say, but that's the reality of the situation. Because if someone commits a heinous act, they should be punished, but there's no conviction here. The NFL goes 6 games. The NFL better be right on this one. Because if they're not right, it's another black eye on the league. And on this one, and I'm not a big fan of the people that run the NFL, but my gut tells me, and the Zeke camp denied it today, but if I was a betting man, I would go with the NFL on this one. Because they claim to have photos, they claim to have text messages, have talked to a bunch of people, but I was a little bit surprised, though, with RJ and his initial answer. And that's why I circled back on it. Because I'm concerned if I'm a Cowboys fan about Ezekiel Elliott. And the FOMO excuse is not good enough. It's almost laughable. I can't say he's, without a doubt, a good guy. I can't call him a bad guy yet. But if these situations are true, then yeah, that's a serious issue and he's a bad guy. But the NFL, they could do whatever they want. They proved that in the Brady case. They could do whatever they want. Even if they say, oh, it's more probable than not, maybe he did this, doesn't matter. The NFL with the CBA can do whatever they want. And they showed that once again. Even though there was no conviction here, there was no case, the NFL did their own investigation. And the NFL says they have enough evidence that results in habitual behavior with Ezekiel Elliott. Time will tell on this one. Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, the Jersey, WNJE, Trenton, Philadelphia. Let's take a break. 3 minutes past 5 o'clock, 5:03 is the time for the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studio. Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920, the Jersey. Brandon Lee Gowden still to come at 5:15.